Hey everybody, welcome to an all-new episode of The Captioned Life, a podcast about how comics and pop culture impact life and society, and vice versa. Coming to you from deep in the heart of Texas, I'm Kevin, and joining me via a really long piece of string and 2 cans of cream corn is my best friend Sean in Indiana.
Hello.
You didn't make it sound like corn.
I know, yeah.
we're 2 kids next door, and it's just strung up from between our windows.
It's guy love. That's all it is.
You know, if we'd have known each other as kids, we definitely would have had a clubhouse.
Yeah, we would have.
And that's a good segue for what we're going to talk about today. Because today we're going to be discussing our favorite superhero secret hideouts. And we're going to talk a little bit about the ideas of isolation and how characters experience that in the page of comics and how we kind of experience that ourselves, especially having lived through this last year. If you're discovering this podcast sometime in the future, it's April of 2021 when we're recording this, and we've just experienced a pandemic that has lasted over a year. I'm putting that out there because I feel like, you know, these podcasts may stand the test of time. So,
right.
So this is what I thought we would do. Sean, I want us to talk about our favorite superhero hideouts, because there are several.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of famous ones. But I wanted to kind of talk about that, and I wanted to kind of talk about, you know, why that like exists in so many stories. So I know that we discussed, you know, talking about our favorites, and since I'm a gentleman, I'm going to let you go first.
Oh, thanks. Does that mean I'm not a gentleman?
No, you just didn't have the opportunity.
Yeah. So I think my favorite one of all time has got to be the Xavier Mansion, because for me, it's X-Men is always going to be my favorite comic series and stories and characters, because that's the one I got introduced to by my uncle, right? And reading about, you know, all the mutants being there, and I think it's just a really cool place in general, just because it's not just a hideout for like the adults who are the superhero fighting team, but it's also a school and a place of learning and a place for safety for mutants who either can't control their powers or they've been labeled, because we know that, you know, if you are familiar with X-Men was pretty much a metaphor for racism back in the 60s. And so that's how they're treated in the stories and everything. And so this was kind of like a safe haven for them. And so it has a lot of different meanings and purposes for it. Plus it was just like badass, right? Like it was really huge.
It's so cool. Like this is going to be the shortest episode of the Captioned Life yet, because
is that yours?
That was mine too. We're just gonna agree, and that's it. We're done.
Right. Well, I mean, because they had the school, right, and they have the danger room. They have Cerebro.
I mean, and that's why I loved it, is because of the technology.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it has a lot of things going for it that I think is really unparalleled with any other, secret hideout headquarters that's out there in the comics, right? Like I can't think of another place that serves like that many purposes and functions as
right. Like it's a school,
Mansion.
And it's a training facility, and it's a secret headquarters, and
right.
You know, I've talked about this on the podcast before, is that I loved the X-Men comics from the early 90s, and I also loved the TV show, the animated TV show, and it just seemed so cool in the TV show. You know, the basketball court opens up and the X-Jet
Blackbird.
Yeah, the Blackbird comes out. Like all that stuff just seemed so cool. It had the doors like on like Starfleet doors that which like grocery stores have too. Which, side note, like, do you ever go to the grocery store and pretend that you're Magneto and like hand wave the door open? I do that all the time. I'm almost 40 years old.
To do that, yeah.
Like you could be Jedi, it could be the Force or whatever. But in my mind, I was always Magneto, because, like I said, I think it's fairly well documented on the podcast that I'm not the best person either. I've got a villain streak in me. So
right.
You know, one of the reasons that I love the X-Mansion too, and we're going to get into the psychology of all this hopefully, is that because it was a shared space. Like it's not necessarily like the Batcave,
right?
Because the Batcave is just where where Bruce Wayne goes to hide out, and he only allows a certain few people in there. We're going to get to some. I'm going to talk about some of that too. But
Right.
I had a Mount Rushmore of secret hideouts. Xavier's Mansion would be my George Washington. Okay,
Right.
like the number one. I'm a big Superman fan, so the Fortress of Solitude. As an adult, though, I don't think I would function well in the Fortress of Solitude because I'd want my wife there, and she can't handle turning the AC down below below 72. So a secret hideout in the Arctic is not gonna do well for her, and that's what it is.
I think the air conditioning is another thing that we have in common because Sarah's the same way. I always want it cold, and she's like, "Why is it freezing in here?"
Right. So up there on my list also was so I fell in love with Al's Barbershop from the Luke Cage series. I just loved like the communal place, like and it was also like Luke Cage's, like where he kind of lived in the back room and his like hangout spot. And even for a while on my office door, I printed out a sign that they had on the door that says Muhammad Ali, Nelson Mandela, Richard Roundtree, Michael Jordan, Al Pacino, and Pat Riley don't pay. Everybody else does.
Right.
I just like the details like that. Just I really love the way that was portrayed in the Netflix series.
Right.
And I know that like for the African American community, like the barbershop is a sanctum what's Dr. Strange
Sanctum sanctorum.
Yeah, it's hollow ground. So my fourth would have been the sewer lair for the Ninja Turtles.
Oh my gosh, that was mine too.
Yeah. But once again, not because of where it's located or what it is but because like when you were a kid and you saw the sewer lair, like that looked like a cool place to hang out.
Yeah, that's honestly, I was like, there's no way Kevin's going to choose this one. Like, I think
those were my top two. Our top two were the same for a lot of the same reasons. This is why we host a podcast together,
right?
It's we're the hive mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so like, do you like also like it was the same kind of thing with the X Mansion. Is it was multifunctional, but also like in the late 80s, early 90s, like Ninja Turtles television show, the cartoon, they had cool stuff. You remember like Michelangelo had like a skateboard
with rockets on it,
with rockets, or like they had like the fan boat thing on the back of it.
Yeah,
and they would just go through the sewers,
like what you see on the Everglades.
Yeah. Like they have them down here too, like in deep East Texas and on the border of Louisiana. There's a lot of swamp and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so like that was for me, like I identified with all that stuff. I loved it. I will tell you that as an adult, I do have some honorable mentions that I want to throw out there. One of them is because I spent a fair amount of time, observing this on television as well. But I don't think enough positive things can be said for the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Also, you can see a theme in this is like top of the line technology. Like he's always got like that tool that you're going to need, and it's there for you. But I had two others, and this is because they are real places. Okay, so number one obviously is the Justice League's Hall of Justice,
right?
Which every kind of like version of the Hall of Justice that you've seen in media is based off of a real place, and that's the Union Terminal train station in Cincinnati, which was built in 1933. It's still there. It's a very cool looking Art Deco building, and it looks like when you look at it, I guess you're conditioned to think that that's the Hall of Justice. The other is the Power Rangers Command Center.
Right.
Like, from the first Power Rangers television show, it kind of looks like the Power Rangers logo. Like it almost looks like a tornado, and it's round, and it's got the space portal that they come through in the roof. That's a real building in the United States of America.
That's right. Yeah.
That is the building at the American Jewish University in Brandeis, California, the Brandeis Spartan campus of American Jewish University. And I just think that that's cool. Like these are one of the ways that like our love of pop culture and things like that and reality kind of like collide.
Right.
Like they
Yeah.
didn't have to CGI like the exterior of a building. That's something that already existed.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, and that's, I mean, that's the whole reason why we have the show, right? Is to talk about how, comics and our lives pretty much interact with each other. And like a lot of people, a lot of things that you see in comics just get inspired, with things that you see in everyday life and all that. So yeah, it's really cool.
You got to think about it. The guy that created the American Jewish University building, that's the Power Rangers Command Center. He did that from his own imagination without knowing the Power Rangers. And the Power Rangers were like, oh, that's so cool, we're going to use that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a forward thinking individual.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, like in Hogwarts Castle being, based on Oxford University and everything, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, and there's like there's some, I can't remember the name of it, but I know that when I was like trying to plan a trip to Europe before the pandemic hit, that there is a castle in Germany that's essentially the basis for like Cinderella's castle at Disney World. And then I was like, oh, they're not gonna let us go to Germany. We can still go to Disney World, hopefully.
Right. But you see that castle in Soren, actually.
Yes, you do. Yeah. That's very cool. Good point. Good point out. Disnerds. Hashtag Disnerds. So here's the thing that I notice about comic book superheroes and having secret hideouts is that, the hideout exists, I think, because sometimes you just want to get away.
Right.
The Fortress of Solitude, like solitude literally means like on your own, no one else. And I think that it is a place where these people, the superheroes, go, and maybe there's less magnitude of their responsibility as a superhero that they feel when they're at home. Because we can't fathom what it's like to be Superman. Right. And to feel responsible to intervene against injustice at every second of the day.
Right.
And even if you could, you would still want a place to go and get away from it all.
Definitely.
The other thing, and I think one of the things that we pointed out with our two picks, is that a lot of the best superhero hideouts are the team places. Okay. Superheroes team up because I think they're just like all of us. They're looking for a place to belong. Okay. Right. Other mortals can't relate to them. And so you find somebody else that has a similar goal, a similar, they've got powers. They feel a similar sense of responsibility. And now you've got a place that you can meet. I think that it's pointed out brilliantly in when Ben Affleck's Batman recruits Flash in the Justice League movie. And he's like, "I'll stop you right there. I'm in. Yeah, I need friends. Yeah. Okay. And there's not a lot of love for the DCU for me, but like that one is it makes sense. Okay.
Right.
The other thing is like a lot of times the way that superhero characters are written, like emotion and attachment to anybody means weakness and vulnerability.
Right.
So like, Spider-Man lost Gwen Stacy, trying to save her, and he failed. And that, in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, Peter's biggest internal conflict the whole time is like, he's in love with Mary Jane, but he doesn't want to put her at risk. And she's a magnet for like bad things happening. And she always seems to get involved anyway. But like, I think that's part of it. Like, that's always Batman's thing. Batman, like, I work alone, but
but he has like four different Robins.
Yeah. 4 different Robins. Kids just are naturally flock to him. And we've talked about this when we talked about the notion of finding family, is that he lost his parents and he becomes a surrogate father to so many people.
Right.
But I think that these stories wouldn't be popular if they didn't connect with people.
Oh yeah.
You said at the beginning of the show or a few minutes ago that the X-Men is a metaphor for racism.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot that happens to superheroes that is a metaphor for or is an extension of what we're happening in real life.
Right.
I know that as a kid, some of my favorite characters were the ones were the mutants or the superheroes that couldn't hide their difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, because like I'm a normal kid. I mean, I was a little bit chubby, like once I hit junior high, and I wore glasses and whatnot. But I mean, you can't throw a rock at a junior high and not hit 10 chubby kids with glasses.
Right.
And I work at a junior high. I've never thrown a rock to test that theory.
Although now that's all you're thinking about.
Right, like, ooh, there's one I bet you I could get that.
Right.
No, because those kids are the ones that that actually come to me, be like they like I'm a kindred spirit. Like I can't.
Right.
Like as much as I want to test the theory, I can't betray their betray them like that.
Right.
But so like characters like Beast and Nightcrawler, and I think
second generation Beast.
Yeah.
Because first generation Beast, I mean, he stood out because he was, super strong and everything. So like he was larger than normal. But yeah, like when he got the blue skin and fur and all that. Yeah.
So Blue Beast is the one that I grew up with, and that's I think that's the thing that makes, like, when you sense that isolation and the loneliness and whatnot. Right. I think that's maybe what draws people to characters. And it's fairly common for superheroes to be lonely like that. I think I think the biggest one is, for me, the biggest example for me is The Thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Because he is, no matter what he does, he's always going to be this big hulking rock formation. Okay.
Right.
And he struggles it with himself. Like he struggles to find a place to belong, even within the superhero family that loves him very much.
Right.
I think he only feels worthy or of being loved when he falls in love with Alicia Masters and she's blind.
Right.
Because he feels like it's a burden to her, like that, if you could see, you wouldn't love me. And
right.
I think that we feel that way, I think, as people a lot.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think what's really interesting is I didn't really think about this a whole lot until this episode, but even though we're talking about these headquarters and secret hideouts of these superheroes and like how cool they are, I mean, there is an element of sadness to all that, right? So like with X-Men and having the Xavier Mansion, I mean, they need to have that safe space because there are mutants that's being persecuted, right? Yeah, I mean, so they need to have that safe space because that's the reality for them, right? Batman has the Batcave, and it's just like what we talked about. It's very lonely because he needs to shut people out and protect his identity because he wants to protect those who are closest to him, which is not a whole lot of people. But I mean, anytime you see a Batcave in any of the comics or any of the movies or anything like that, it's this huge space with one person in it. And like that is like the epitome of loneliness for representing that for a superhero, right? I mean, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like they live in the sewers because, again, people react negatively.
Ready.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna.
So even though it's a cool place, I mean, there's an element of sadness to it because, that they want to be out and like hanging out with everybody. That's what they want to do. But because of their experience and everything, they know that they can't just go out and do that all the time. And so even though they have a safe home and they love their home, there is that element of sadness that's tied into it. And Fortress of Solitude, I mean, anything basically.
The first live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie really, really hits on, like, because they're young, they're teenagers, and they want to experience life outside the sewer. And the first time they go visit April's apartment and whatnot, they're like, their strange new world, right, to them, but they love it. They just want to be a bit. They just want to be able to go and be and exist in the world like that.
Right.
Um, that's the opposite. It's like the opposite of most of these stories. Like the Ninja Turtles are the exception, I think, because like you said, they live in the sewer because the rest of the world isn't ready to accept them for who they are. And the same to the mutants. They isolate themselves because it's for their own safety, and that's jacked up. But
Right.
we de facto segregate ourselves all the time because we want to be close to the people that we identify with, especially like when you go back 175 100 200 years, like during the peak like European immigration to this country. We even in the state of Texas, we have communities with strong ties to European culture because that this is where groups of immigrants came to, and when you are new to a place, you want to be able to speak the same language as your neighbor. Like for example, here in Texas, there's a town that was started hundreds of years ago as a Spanish mission called San Patricio, Texas. But San Patricio in English is St. Patrick. So the biggest concentration of Irish immigrants in the 1800s settled in San Patricio. And then, and so like, there are places all over. I don't wherever giants came from, where did they settle your family at?
Tennessee.
Okay. Well, we grew them big in Tennessee.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, like that's the anomaly. The Ninja Turtles are the anomaly. The rest of the superheroes like are literally trying to get trying to find a place to get away from everybody.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I've been thinking about. Okay, so like this last year, we've been socially distant, whether or not you wanted to or not. Like it was just best practice was to keep your distance. Okay.
Right.
We're not congregating in public. We talk to our best friends via Zoom, whether or not that they're 6 states away or they're 6 minutes away.
Right.
But it's made me contemplate like the effects that has had. Like how have we thrived in this the sense of loneliness, or having taken that, because some of us are introverts, we don't really want to go out and do stuff, but like because it's been forced on us, has it given us more of a desire to have like meaningful human contact?
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's I think you hit down the head pretty well, because I know for me, like when we started working from home, I was like, I love this because I like talking to people, but I also like to like control the environment in which people interact with me. And I think it's mostly because I work in an open office environment. And so it's like anyone can come up and walk up and talk to you at any time. Right. And usually
and you're like, I don't want to hear about your corgi, Deborah.
I mean, I welcome anyone like coming up and talk to me and everything, but it's just, it's because I'm an introvert. Like when you look at, like the difference between introvert and extrovert, I think a lot of people get surprised that I say I'm an introvert, because I like love talking to people. Like I really do. But at the same time, I love not talking to people, and I get my energy from not interacting with people, because when I do interact with people, by the end of the day, like I am just wiped out and exhausted from talking and everything, And so for me, it's like I get a lot more energy now because I can kind of control the circumstances of like how I interact with people and be able to thrive and be more energetic. And I get a lot more done too, But on the same side of that same coin, or on the other side of the same coin there, it also killed me that I couldn't go out to the places I usually go with my family and get away from the house. Right. And so kind of going back to this whole idea of having this, secret hideout for superheroes and stuff like that. It's like being inside the house for a year and having like limited opportunities to go out and interact with this, the outside environment, and everything. It's just like, we needed to, get out of this space,
right.
As much as I love working from home, it's one thing to work from home, but be able to go to places around you, safely and at your leisure. And it's another one where you have to stay at home for work, but also like, almost 24/7 because you're trying to social distance, and I think that kind of helps put the magnifying glass on the loneliness that can really help, because even though we're connected with technology, I think thankfully, this helped with having, Zoom and all the technology you can to stay connected humans thrive on interaction, whether you're introvert or extrovert. And like, you do need to interact with people in a physical capacity on some level. Right. I mean, and I think
this is the reason why the Justice League has the Watchtower and the Teen Titans have the giant T, which makes no sense. Like, here we are, everybody.
Right.
Yeah. Like, we've mentioned this before when we did an interview with David Pepose a few weeks ago, and I don't know if it made it into the podcast, but it was in our conversation afterwards that women go to therapy and men start podcasts. Because like, okay, like I mentioned it earlier, superheroes are drawn to teams, Justice League, the X-Men, the Avengers, because they want to interact with people that they identify with,
right,
people that they can relate to.
right.
And I think that it's been therapeutic for people like you and I, me and you. Like, we've got a friendship that's really grown out of this because we realize we have so much in common. And it helps to talk to somebody that understands like what you're going through.
Right.
And I can only imagine what some people were going through. Like, even just, let's say, like by mid-July last year, 3 months into it, when it was like really, really locked down. And like, you're at home, your kids are getting on your nerves.
Right.
Like, you literally heard every story your wife has to tell. and it can be like the fortress of solitude can become what used to be your place of refuge is now become your prison.
Right.
And I mean, like, to put it in like superhero terms, like, imagine you were on the Teen Titans and you're sitting at home, and if you have to like watch Beast Boy turn into a dog and like groom himself again,
right,
like you're gonna like kick a window open and escape. You're gonna want to.
Right.
So like, there is like, it's just a weird dichotomy, like, of the two sides of this. Like, it can be a great place for you to be able to get away from it all, but at the same time, it can become a prison of your own making.
Right. Right.
I will say that since we've inched back towards normalcy, that Saturdays have become like one of my like favorite days. It's like our recharge day. Kathy and I, my wife and I, were joking earlier today when Saturday we spend a lot of time either on the couch or in our bedroom, just like next to each other. And sometimes we spend like an hour at a time or 2 hours at a time, just like watching TikToks and like laughing and bonding and whatnot. It's very important for us to do that. But at some point earlier today, we realized that it was like 4:00 in the afternoon and I had 600 steps and she had 400 steps. Like, we just hadn't done anything.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like that's, oh man, but it's so important for us. Like, that's our self-care.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely.
But at least she's there with me. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's important. Like, I'm not lonely. I'm not by myself.
Right.
And I think marital relationships or any like strong, like, romantic relationship or even a friendship relationship, sibling relationship, those are the people that you let into your fortress.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
We hide, like, and speaking of metaphors, we hide in our fortresses because like, if we truly get to know somebody, if we truly love somebody, it means exposing every part of ourselves, like, to them.
Right.
Like the weird shit that only a wife or best friend is going to be able to like love about you.
Right.
And so the fortress of solitude exists because we have to protect ourselves from our own vulnerability. And that's our biggest enemy, is our own vulnerability. And the fortress of solitude is where we feel the safest.
Right.
So I don't know. It's, I don't know where to go with this from here, but like,
I know. I feel like we kind of gone down a hole of like talking about really sad and depressing.
That's why I wanted to try to spice it up with the stuff at the beginning about our favorite superhero things like that. But I want there's somebody out there that maybe needs to hear this. Like, hey, you know what? I'm going through that same stuff right now.
Right.
And I think that's part of it. You have to expose your vulnerability, just so sometimes, like I wrote about this last week, like I in my like personal journal, and I kind of shared it on Facebook, that like I'm exhausted. Like
Right.
this year has been the longest decade of my life.
Yeah.
And like, but I'm gonna keep pushing myself. I'm gonna keep trying. And if you need to talk to somebody, please reach out and talk to somebody. Like, light up that bat signal or the beacon of Gondor. If you need somebody, I'm here for you. And like I put myself out there because I wanted other people to know, like if you're stuck in the suck,
right,
then we're there together. And I said this in what I wrote, is that like when you hit rock bottom, it's maybe not so bad if you know somebody at the party.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think that any of us truly, like, I mean, there's some terrible, miserable things going on in the world right now. And I really feel for people who are experiencing that. But like, I feel like as long as you've got a reason to like get up and put your clothes on and step out of the fortress of solitude every day, that there's at least some hope.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to talk about this. And I'm glad that I have this podcast and a best friend like you to talk about these important things.
Same here.
So, hey, Sean was right. We went down a dark hole there. And it's okay. If you stuck with us through the whole episode, we appreciate it. We love you. We want you to know that you're appreciated. And we're going to put this out there on Twitter. We're going to come up with a poll. What should we call our own virtual fortress of solitude where we meet to have these conversations?
Right. Like
the Zoom room is a little bit too on the nose, but but that's
these virtual spaces, right?
Definitely in the running. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So hey. Okay, that wraps up another episode of The Captioned Life. We hope you enjoyed listening. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button on whatever major podcast platform you listen to. And you can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Captioned Life. If you like what we're doing, give us a shout out and tag us in your post. For more info about us and all of our previous episodes, visit podpage.com/The Captioned Life. And until next time,
to the Caption Castle.
All right.